What's this world that you've been struggling with?
With this book, I sort of hoped while I wrote it that everyone who would read it would come back.
But one doesn't pity you in that sense, and I think that's the beauty of the writing.
And I've never been who I should be. I've always been in between.
You're quite a storyteller.
Antiboy started as my diary that I kept in a very dark time. And after that, my editor asked me to put it into a non-fiction, as we called it, a coming of gender.
Hey Valentine.
Hello, Kaiwan.
Welcome to Mumbai, and it's really beautiful to be in this conversation with you this evening, especially because partly preparing for today evening, I've been with your book and the words floating inside there over the last few days. And it soon turned from preparing for this conversation to wandering not only between the lines you have written, but wandering through my memory lane in many, many ways. And I think that's the pleasure of reading. So in between a heavy working day, you just sort of snatch a few corners of this sort of beautiful experience. So thank you very much for the book. And I think I will thank you for other reasons in this book soon as we sort of talk about it and move through the conversation. But maybe we should start with a little bit of reading to give a sense of the book to the audience who haven't particularly spent the last few days reading this book and may soon do so. But
Yes. Thank you for reading it. Antiboy started as my diary that I kept in a very dark time. And after that, my editor asked me to put it into a non-fiction, as we called it, a coming of gender. So the diary became a story, a coming of gender. I'm gonna read you from a part when I was still on my journey and I was wondering how other people knew what gender they are. So I just started asking everybody I knew. These are the answers. I ask women when they feel like a woman, and they respond. When someone bothers me on the train. I once got boxed in by a man in a van when I was walking down the street, but I ran away quick, and he couldn't unlock his door in time. Men are always touching you up on the dance floor. It's part of life. When I brush my hair, when I wear a leopard print bikini, when my insides hurt. For me, it's really all to do with my breasts. In my friendships with other women, the way we take care of each other. I don't actually know why I call myself a woman, but I know I am one. I feel like a woman when it's dark and I walk with my house keys between my knuckles. Or when someone calls me a whore on the street when I cross. Oh, at the hairdresser's, reading a magazine with my hair packed in silver foil and an itchy scalp. Or when a strand of hair gets stuck in my lip gloss. During sex. One woman answered, when he left me, and I stood in the doorway screaming like a goddess of retribution, that I've never been happy, never. That he shouldn't think that I ever for a second enjoyed being with him, not in all those years. That he had a small dick and was shit in bed and that I sucked off his friends, and knowing I have to apologize later, but not then. Then I wanted to hurt him, and cause all kinds of damage that some other woman would have to repair. I still remember which dress I was wearing when I screamed at him, and whenever I see it in my wardrobe, I think, revenge dress. I feel like a woman in the summer. Construction workers. I never thought about it, and I don't think I need to. If I wasn't one, I know, right? Can I ask you a question? Have you ever felt like you were betraying womankind? The man I ask when he feels like a man says that men have the highest chance of being murdered by another man, and that men can be sexually assaulted by men too, and that women always forget this. They're so quick to claim the role of victim, he says. One friend says, the label man doesn't mean much to me. Friend, brother or son are more meaningful to me. And another man sighs that it's part of him, just like his feet. Have you always known, people ask me. But who is going to love me? I don't want long hair anymore. If I only had a flat chest. I don't know which girl you are talking to, and I've never been who I should be. I've always been in between. There was always the hope that one day I get the hang of being a girl, and I would finally turn into the right one. Yes, I always knew, but I called it emptiness. Something was missing that other people did have. I only knew that love was something you dreamed of, and all the while something was screaming under my skin to escape. And I spent so long staring at my feet to figure out my gender. Thank you.
Thanks, Valentine. Thank you for that beautiful reading. You began by saying you started this as a diary during a dark time in your life. And obviously, diaries are beautiful literary forms, no doubt about that. But I also felt like I lost myself again listening to you right now. Um, you're quite a storyteller. And there's a kind of I don't know if I would call them chapters, but yeah, they are small chapters. They are little longish chapters, but they are sections to sections. They are images to images that you sort of jump in the book or move from one image to the other in the book, and you're a compulsive and a beautiful storyteller, and I think that comes across in the writing essentially because you can feel a lot of grit, you can feel a lot of flesh, you can feel a lot of persona, but none of that sort of takes me over as a reader. It allows me still to be a reader and yet participate and be with you in the book. What was the struggle of writing?
Thank you for all the compliments.
Yeah, and they're not compliments because I'm sitting and it's my job to give compliments because I'm doing this conversation. But
you feel sincere though. Thank you.
But no,
what was the
it's been
struggle?
the experience of reading, and which is why I'm very happy doing this conversation, that I don't have to play up a conversation and I can be honest. I would have been honest otherwise as well. I think I know myself there. But yes, what's been the struggle of writing?
The struggle of writing this book. There were many things that I struggled with. One, when I started keeping these notes, physically and mentally, I was super low. I just had the operation on my breast. My longtime partner just left, and I was not sure if I felt non-binary already for a long time, but I was super afraid to lose friends and lose credibility as a writer when I would come out with it. I was afraid that people would judge me, that it would limit in what I wanted to make from now on. So I was basically just scared of a lot of things. So the struggle was the writing was not a struggle because I write always, every day. I've written since I was small, like diaries, love letters. I was super into love letters when I was a toddler. Like Valentine's Day is my thing. So the writing was no problem, but knowing what to publish and letting go of the shame and fear. And also, this is nonfiction, so there are people in there that actually exist, like the partner who left, like my father. It's about my mother's sexual orientation as well. My mom died, but after her death, I found out she was a rainbow person. So it was this book was mostly about me being a responsible adult. Like, okay, I have all this information. How to be responsible with all this information, and that was the biggest struggle. How to be fair to everyone in the book.
One can feel the fear. It's palpable, but one doesn't pity you in that sense. And I think that's the beauty of the writing, that you don't let us sort of get into that role, but one travels with you through the different people, and you use the word responsible towards the other characters in the book, which is what I was seeing, that there's a certain way in which I start building a persona of you as I read through the book, but yes, the other persona are equally strong, whether they have done something you like, not done something you like or don't like, that's a different story. But they are characters in themselves, and there's a little world that is building up as one, which is, I think, also the struggle probably that you're talking about, that this world that we build around ourselves, and there's a fear that we will lose it, and we try to hold it or we try to shape it. So in a sense, the writing or the building up of what one would call quote unquote plot is also what we struggle with, in a sense of the everyday of building people and things around ourselves, the fear of losing them. What's this world that you've been struggling with?
The book ends. This is a spoiler for everyone, but the book ends with I want to find the right word that makes everyone I lost come back, because that my first book, which I debuted with, I wrote when my mom was dying, and I sort of told myself in my head that if I would finish it before she died, she wouldn't die, and then she died, and then I sort of in my head thought like, I'm gonna write this book and then she won't be dead when it's finished, and that of course wasn't true. So it took me a long time to realize she would never read it. And with this book, I lost so many people during the operation and during the breakup. And with this book, I sort of hoped while I wrote it that everyone who would read it would come back. So that was the thing I think I was struggling the most with, like its conversations, its thoughts. I don't want to lose more people with it. I want them all to come back. But I think the desire to write is the desire to evolve. So when I finished the book, I didn't want that anymore. Or more, it would be nice, but I didn't need it anymore for them to come back.
There is one more thing that I found very striking about the end, but I won't talk about it. I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
What was that?
Curious? Cliffhanger?
No. I'll tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, you were saying that you wanted people to come back, but the book is a book, and it's with all of us, and many readers will come to you. I have the opportunity to be with you in person, have a conversation with you. Many will just have the book and have you there as this person in the book. And as much as it is personal, the book is not personal. Anyone can read it, not feel melodramatic about it, but be with you still in the book. So there's this sense of one is very close to the person in the book, and yet there's a readerly distance that is there. So this balancing between the personal and the public, the one that is outside, which is the written book, which is you, but yet you've let that be out there. Is it a struggle balancing the personal and the one that is outside there, the writer, the person?
I would say no, because I'm always very about being practical and being intimate. And being deep. Being deep is also important. So I always think like you can be very practical in your intimacy. You can like use the way you are outside of the house, the way you are in public. You can use that to be practical, to get to know people, to be intimate. And later I'm going to ask you about this too, because I have the feeling that this is also for you, Tim. But let me finish on this. I think I unconsciously also wanted to come out. So I was sort of I was doing the diary because I felt very low after the operation and I couldn't sit up, so I was writing it in bed. But when we knew that we would publish it, I think I sort of knew like, if I'm having a gender reveal on national television, new friends will find me. The community will find me. I'm so lonely now, but in a way, if you're like writing a book with a rainbow on it, like it's the flag of my country, a rainbow, like the gays will come and find you. So in that way, I think it was very practical to write it like this, because I knew that if I would be very open about who I was, when people know you, you give them the possibility to love you.
Yes.
So very practical and intimate at the same time. What do you think about the public and the person you are at home? What's the difference? Is there a difference?
There is a difference, yeah.
What is
In
it?
the possibility to be intimate in public is something that I'm much more interested in. In fact, I would love you to talk a little bit more about the question of intimacy. What does intimacy mean? Because intimacy can be very nauseating, or
When?
or intimacy can be sort of
First time
letting
I'm hearing
oneself
this.
go in a way. So how does one deal with different kinds of intimacy?
Let's go first. Like, when is intimacy nauseating? I need to know more about this.
When there's too much of it.
And what is too much intimacy? What do you think?
The possibility to be yourself and be public simultaneously. I like the way that you put the pragmatic and the intimacy together.
Yeah.
And that freedom and flexibility is important.
I think, of course, I can sort of guess what you mean with too intimate, but that's a really interesting topic for me because that means you are already curating your space. Like, how much can I love? Like, yeah, then you sort of already make a decision. Like the other person isn't there. Like, my love will be too much. But actually, if you're with someone else, you can always ask. It doesn't have to be a monologue. You can always go in dialogue, like, is this too much? That person can say, yes, this is too much. And then you're like, okay, I'm toning down. You know, intimacy is a dialogue and not a monologue.
Possibly, yes. Possibly.
We go into this, we will explore, we will find out. Yeah.
And can you talk a bit more about the deep question?
Yes. I think it's very important for me. I always sort of think that maybe I will never meet someone again when I meet them. Like, hopefully I will be great friends with everyone I meet, but I always sort of counting on them like this is the only time I meet you. So that makes me go like very fast. I ask questions like, how's your love life? Or do you want to be buried when you die? But not like as a gimmick, but more like, this is my only chance to get to know you. And a lot of times it isn't true. I keep repeating meeting with people, but you can never know, you know? So I find it so, maybe, like, if they're comfortable with it, I don't want to do a McDonald's meeting. I want to do a full dinner meeting, you know?
Yeah. Is this the time to probably ask you to expand a little bit
on the McDonald's sections of the book?
No.
There is,
that I
in my
remember with the
writing, there's
posters,
always a lot of McDonald's, actually.
with the posters in your room and the little
Yeah.
this sentence on page 10 which says, not because people don't love you, but because no one knows where you are.
Yes.
This struggle to be there, the struggle to have people, precisely as you said, you meet somebody, will you lose them? Will they be with you? But what I found really sort of deep in a way is not because people don't love you, but because no one knows where you are. So that sense of being is much more important, is it?
Yes, and this sentence I wrote about safety, because when I was a child, I was often in very unsafe situations. And I already knew then that it was not because I was not loved, but because there was no one that knew where I was at those times. I had parents who were both working, and my mom also was may or may not be having affairs. So there was like no one at home. So I knew that sometimes when I run into a muck, it wasn't because nobody loved me, but just literally no one knew where I was. So that's where that idea of came off with me. I just wrote a poem that called "This Happened Because I Was Alone." Like, when you're alone, a lot of shitty things happen, or something bad happens and you're afterwards alone because you have no one to tell it to. Yeah.
And that I found very touching, in fact, because half the time people sort of express it as lack of love, but it's this lack of being lost in the space that is most familiar.
Lack of parental guidance, or lack of parental view, maybe in this case, or maybe just logistics, because they had a lot of people, they asked a lot of other people to care for me. But sometimes when 5 people are doing this, agendas go wrong and you end up being alone, not on purpose. Yeah, I don't know why I was alone so lot, but I don't
Yeah.
think that it was because they didn't care.
Another sentence, I think, and one can build from the earlier one. I feel most like myself when I bend down to pick up fallen matches and can't fit them back into the box.
Yeah,
That's deep and intimate.
thank you. Yeah. That's because I thought about when I started transitioning, some people were very quick to say, like, now you're being the real you. Like, the real you became a concept suddenly that was in the room suddenly with me. Or people were like, were you not the real you before? Are you now the real you? Like, people needed to know what the real me was. And in response to that, I wrote that in my diary because I was wondering it all the time too, because I was so confused by all the physical trauma and the mental things that were happening. I was like, what if I'm lying? What if I'm a gender scammer or a gender cowboy? How do I know what I am now? And you can ask nobody, since my mom died and no one can look into you. So I was like, how to know what my gender is? So I thought, like, I feel super like myself when I pick up matches. And somewhere else in the book, I write of my sexual desire. My sexual orientation is being wanted. That was also very clear to me. Like, I feel like myself when I'm picking up matches, and I like being wanted.
I'm going to read one more part because I'm enjoying this right now. It's a long paragraph. I'm just going to read the last bit of it. In the tram with an arm so close that I smell another monster, smaller, ugly, with a belly, but that doesn't make me more or less of a monster, just a different monster. I scratch open my scales under them, hard skin. I grow bigger every year, never better, never more or less. Monster, once you are a monster, it no longer matters whether you are more or less of a monster. That I loved some of these tones in the book where they sort of go on in this literary way of building up this idea. The scales in the skin, the hard skin, and the monster, these two images I really enjoyed. Enjoyed not in a, I enjoyed them literally, I mean to say, but they are very sort of touching, or they sort of ask you to open up a part and ask yourself some questions as well.
And what did it open up?
I'm supposed to be asking questions here.
Okay.
No.
Wait, you think about it one moment, and I'm just gonna talk to the audience for a moment, like, because I promised like, are there any hetero people here tonight? Are they? Ah, that's okay. And I'm acceptant of that because I think love is love. So what do you think? You had time to think.
I had time to think. No, yeah, okay.
What kind of questions does it open up to you?
Just I think it's two things are connected. One thing that you were just saying again, I was thinking on my feet, when do we know, or when do we really figure out, or when did I think that, oh, this is what Kaiwan is, or this is, I'll be now, whatever that may be a kind of a definition of the kind of work you do, the way you relate with life, the way you relate with family, people around you, people who love you, people who don't love you. At some point you feel that, oh, I've now figured out how to deal with this. I've suffered because of this in the past. Now I know how to deal with it. But is there a sure moment? I think that question sort of opened up at one level in the previous conversation that you were having. The monster just, I think, makes the monster image makes the world equal. This little monster that all of us have, and everybody is negotiating it, I think opens up a sense of empathy in one way or the other, that it's everybody's struggle in many ways. The hard skin and scales are with everyone.
Yeah, and I wrote this poem already in 2012 in Dutch. Dan is het, I call it monster opera. And it goes like, ik ben een monster onder mijn skin, onder mijn huid. Mijn lief heeft een bril, maar ziet het niet. And the poem then resonated because I found out a lot of people see themselves as a monster, but a sweet monster. And that's also very interesting because I talk also to a lot of, I'm also writing musical and theater. And I also talk to a lot of people who are accused of going over another's boundaries. But everybody sort of sees themselves as a monster, but sometimes they do terrible things because they think like, I cannot be the perpetrator. I'm just this small, awkward monster, you know? So that makes it for me doubly interesting. Like people see themselves as monsters, but harmless monsters sometimes. And then they do super shitty things because they're like, but it's just little old me. I cannot be the problem. So being a monster is a very cool and complex territory, I think.
No, that's I think what comes out in this little section so beautifully, and that's why I said that you use the word again as I said earlier, responsible. That there are many characters and ideas of the persona opening up. I think then it becomes much more. It's more about a human being. It's more about, do we understand how we relate with other human beings, including ourselves? So I think some of those questions open up much more as universal ideas in the book. The questions of gender, the questions of your experiences, the questions of something that is medical, they are there, they are very pertinent, but the book allows somebody to sort of be with that and then sort of skate off with other references to oneself. So another one.
Can I say something about that chapter?
Yes.
The monster poem is beginning of the chapter. I have a dialogue with the doctor because why I started going on this gender journey was for the reason that my mom got diagnosed with ovary cancer, and then we had a check in the family if it was genetically, and I had breast cancer gene as well. So I had to have conversations like, do you want to remove your breast or not? Or just hope you won't get cancer, but you have 80% chance. So I thought this is a bad gamble. I'm going to the hospital to discuss this with a very good doctor, very well respected, won a reality show in Holland. So I thought this is going to be great. And I came in for the conversation and he assured me, first thing he said was, we're going to give you implants. You will still be a beautiful woman. So he said that a few times. I have the conversation on my phone because I already knew this is going to be a lot of information. I need to listen back. So on the phone, I hear after 4 minutes, I try to get myself in I don't want the implants. Can I have them not, please? And then he starts saying, ooh, you will be aesthetically undesirable. You will be so aesthetically undesirable. And also you'll get mental problems. And also you'll be aesthetically undesirable. So he tries to help me by saying, you will be so ugly and will have mental problems, so don't do that. And the conversation is so confusing because I know he's well estimated, he's authority figure, so maybe he's right. Maybe I will get crazy if I don't get implants. But in my head, it's then I have an easier operation. I will not have for years medical checkups. There will not be risks. And also, he doesn't have to wear those implants. So I'm going to discuss with him in this chapter, yeah, but I have to wear them, those breasts you're talking about. And he's like, women are always like that. They think they know more about breasts than me. But I've seen so much in my life. I've seen them all. So he starts to convince me that he's this breast expert. And I am all the time, I want to be polite, but I have one lucky thing. My father is a doctor. So for me, doctors are authority figures, but they're also soft boys, like my dad. So I'm okay, he's trying to help, but he's convincing me to not be ugly, have implants that he doesn't get to wear. So it's for me so I cannot say fuck. No, it's for me so it's terrible, actually. It's the start of COVID, and I know that I couldn't go to a lot of other doctors as well, and I hoped to be reassured in this conversation. But this is actually the first conversation that I have to say out loud, although I don't want to. Hey, I'm not a woman, because I was raised as a boy for a very long time until I got teased too much. Then we womanified me and my mother. But the fact that somebody is so pushing you, then you have to put it in language. Before that, I could just not say anything. But the moment that someone says, like, I'm going to come with a knife and operate on you to make you this beautiful woman, very aesthetically desirable, I felt sort of forced to come out as like, no, thank you. And that was, in that way, that's why I put the monster poem on top of that. Like, before that, I felt like I could be anonymously under my skin, be who I was. But I didn't have to put it in conversation. And this dude, this doctor, sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful, but he's sort of a hero doctor. But other people force you to speak up or to choose to be silent. Like, if you're alone, you can be silent as much as you want. And that's also maybe the beauty of being alone. You don't have to define yourself because no one's going to ask. But I think in this one life, I don't want to be alone. And it means that people are going to ask, who are you? And then you have to choose if you're going to say who you are.
That moment is a bit irritating and amusing when he says that, yeah, but you've seen only your breasts. I've seen lot many women. And I'm like, yeah, he's right, but he shouldn't be saying that. He's crazy. Yeah.
And also, I think at this moment, I wanted to say to him, you get so much out of your doctor's coat. You know this.
Yeah.
You know about uniform. You know about getting up in the morning and then dressing up to be a certain point. Like, he doesn't wake up and is not himself, but he does get on the coat to be a doctor. And I thought that he would understand, after all this operating on human bodies, I thought he would understand more about the diversity of human bodies. But I sort of know, because of my father, that the persons who know a lot about people are the general practitioners, and the ones who cut, the patients is mostly asleep. So they don't talk too much to people. So that's why maybe the conversation was so awkward. That's what I think. I hope it's right.
So it just reminded me about this section in the book where you're packing off your clothes. And you also mentioned you and your mom sort of trying to make a girl out of you.
Yeah.
Isn't that a certain kind of intimacy of the pressure of being?
I think what I mean by that, for me, I have an older sister, and I was sort of raised as the sun. And I had also, not like the sun in the sky, but the sun. And I also had I kept trying to get scissors when I was small, nabbing scissors and cutting my own hair off. But at a certain age, I was teased a lot and I didn't have friends. And I was like, okay, this is not working. So I researched on makeovers. That's very easy for girls to get your hands on. You just have a magazine or you put the TV on, like, okay, how to be a girl. I'm going to do this. And also my mom was very afraid of me being teased. And I think there's also a double component of her never belonging or never being the right woman or the girl. So she also imposed on me very strongly, like, this is how you should behave. This is how you should be. And she wanted me to have very long hair and very flowy mermaid dresses. And I could never cut my hair. And I was her pride, being as feminine as possible. But for me, that installed the idea in my head that a woman is made. Like that I wasn't born like one, but my mom made me into one. And I really wanted to be closer to my mom. So it was for me a very acceptable price to pay for a long time.
Wasn't that intimacy a form of it? Because towards the end also you say that I can't paraphrase that exactly, but somebody wants you to say, and said you say that I wouldn't have shared it with this person. My mom would be the only person I would talk about this to.
I think my mom was all about keeping me safe. And that is a form of intimacy and can be a limitation. But if it touches me, the question, like, is this intimacy with my mom? I think it was her keeping me safe was her form of being close to me. But I tried to come out when she was already dying. Like, I tried to talk about this with her. And I always say when people are sick, they get a little bit more conservative because they're, easily afraid. So I try to say, like, I'm more into girls and and I want to cut my hair. My mom was like, no, 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 no. I think she wanted a future for me she could imagine on her sick bed or deathbed. And she couldn't imagine what my future would be like if I did all those things she deemed risky.
I'll read one more sentence that I've marked off. One time he told me about a professor who'd had to leave behind his collection of books, but in the Netherlands, he'd found some cardboard boxes dumped on the street containing the very books he was missing. That's beautiful. Because
Yeah.
I'm crazy. I collect books more than I read. And I have to lose them. But there are many things, I know this is just a metaphor in life, but there are many things that we have to let them go, but they come around. I don't know if they really come around or we imagine that they come around, but this cycle happens.
Yeah, and it was also very literal because when I started my studies, when I was in high school, I dated both boys and girls. I was in a village and it was sort of acceptable because it was the 2000s. It was the Britney Madonna time. So being bisexual was cool and accepted, but you had to have a boyfriend, but still. But when I started studying, I first met like the lesbians, and I started dating one who was from Iran, was Farsi, and I got their name tattooed on my back because I wanted to flex. I have a cover up now over it, and he transitioned later, so he's in the book. He's a he there, and he told his parents had to flee to the Netherlands. And he told me about this professor that had to flee from his books, but found like a pile of books in the street who were exactly his library books. And I always remembered this, like things will come back
Or
to
maybe
you.
he just imagined that the books he found were meant to be his library.
We should fact check.
No, not as a fact, but just as an idea, because we also imagine things in this way sometimes. We make life sort of behave in the way we wish that
Actually,
it behaves.
when I had the first inkling of like I know the name now for what I have, I think it's non-binary or I think it's trans. Like when I had all this little. Does everyone know what non-binary is? I can give a short description. It's like if you feel like you're both female or male or outside of the genders. So it's everything or not at all. When I first started, for me, first the operation came and the question like, what do I want with my body? So then I started reading up on other people who got the operation. A lot of trans men get them, of course. And then I've sort of had an insight like, is that the word or the label for what I am? Can you be a label without knowing the word? How should I know? And I'm very empirical and practical. So I was like, I'm going to call this one trans man that I know. And that was my ex. I call him Sliman in the book. Actually, he has a very beautiful Iranian name that his mom picked out for him because she picked out his first name as a baby. So she also wanted to pick out a new name. And I was like, okay, let me see. We haven't spoken to each other for 10 years. Let me see if I still have his number. And he picks up. And he picked up. I was like, where are you living? And he lived 2 streets across from me. And I was like, no, okay, coffee now. So it feels like a bit of an ego. Like he was super close to me when I wanted to talk about this. So then we had coffee and discussed.
Do you want to read something from the book at this point?
Yes, do you have a point that you would like me to read? Like a thing?
Maybe a moment with Slimane?
Yeah.
Because I love the name actually.
Yes, thank you. It's a little bit of a play on the old name they had because tattoo. Yes, I have a part about them. Slimane is a ghost, I wrote in my diary. When I was 19, I moved into an apartment in Amsterdam with a bedroom and a living room. The girl I rented my room from slept in the living room and there was no door. When I was in the kitchen, I could hear her when she had sex. Sounds that became familiar and never stopped at the sound of my footsteps or the ping of the microwave. Muted chats and laughter and my name whispered from time to time. As a child, I already made several attempts to keep a diary, the same way I liked staring melancholy into rivers or lakes at the sea. They sold diaries with golden locks in the supermarket, so I laid several out ready on my desk. As soon as I'd written anything, my mom would put the diary in the loo so that the guest had something to read. You could, you could open the locks with your thumbs. So I left most of the pages empty. Or I lied on those pages that I was in love with a boy called Jonas, but that he had fallen for my best friend. A ménage à trois I'd taken from a television show. I didn't have a best friend. It was only at the kitchen table in my new home, with my flatmate's moans and occasional shrieks in the background, that I began to write without the risk of anyone reading it. I wrote about Slimane, who had just disappeared from my life at the time. He had stopped answering her phone, and after 49 days, I wrote in my diary, "It's been 49 days since I last spoke to you. Yesterday and the day before that, I didn't even think about you." Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Antiboy, the
Um,
title, but also as the word, the name?
yes. When I knew I was going to publish this, I didn't have my new name yet. I still had a girl's name. And I wasn't sure what name I was going to choose for myself because, I really like that Slimane asked his mom, but I couldn't because she wasn't there. So I figured I'd take a placeholder name, like when you have a baby but you don't want to tell anyone yet. So I took Antiboy as the placeholder, and I just kept hanging on to it.
Can I read the last few pages, which is with your grandma?
Yeah. Then I'm gonna think of her. She, after the book came out, she died. So I'm super happy that I could still introduce myself properly to my grandmother. But she already had dementia, so I was introducing myself anyway. Yeah.
Over the noise, I ask my half-deaf grandmother how she's doing. She looks at me searchingly. Who are you? I say my old name. She shakes her head and gives my dad a questioning look. He's sitting in the chair next to me. She's known him for longer, a son-in-law who visits regularly and writes down in a notebook which fruit he's brought. His own mother died young and he calls grandma Ma. On a low chest of drawers, there's a photo of my mum. It's the one they put on her coffin, taken just before she died. She frowns into the sunlight, which is typical of her, but I would have chosen a happier picture myself. My grandma is still holding my hand tightly, her lilac varnished nails digging into my skin. But she addresses my dad. I can't see it. Who is this? Whose child are you? Grandad asks loudly. Your daughter's. Grandad shakes his head. She didn't have any children. On the wall, there are framed photos of my cousins and school photos of my sister's kids. I wander through the apartment. On their bedroom wall, I came across a group picture of all their grandchildren taken when I was 11. It's better than nothing. I take it off the hook and bring it to the living room. Look, that's me. My grandma takes the picture and holds it so loosely it almost slides off her lap. I take it back and hold it up to her face. She looks from the 11-year-old girl in the photo to me, a rather overheated adult who towers above her and has a shaved head and a round face. The day that picture was taken, I was wearing skinny jeans for the first time. It was the summer before I started secondary school, and I was hoping to find other people like me there. I put the frame down on the table and lower myself into the chair next to Grandma. She lays her veiny hand on mine again and gives it a squeeze, and I wonder who I will be when I've forgotten everything in my old age. Which name will I answer to? I can see it's making you sad, my dad says in strange, flat voice. Grandma asks again who I am. Your grandchild. I say my girl's name and then my new name because my name is a word. I believe in words that if I find the right word, everyone will come back. Congratulations, people keep saying to me as if I've just been born. That's beautiful because I think there's something else that I've been personally thinking about is the question of age. And it's nowhere in the book, and it just suddenly comes out. But then you suddenly find that sense of lingering, that sense of intimacy with relationships, with people you know, people you've lost in life. And at the same time, the way that a body wrecked by age is also going to the veiny hands, the skin, all of that sort of brings age very palpably, but as memory once again. And I think throughout the book, you're running for memory very, very often.
Running from memory?
You're running for memory, you're running with memory.
Yeah.
In sort of wanting somebody to sort of behave the way he behaved earlier.
Oh, this is so beautiful.
So I think that comes with the question of age very beautifully, which has been a personal point of thinking in the last few years for me as well, when I've been thinking of how people, bodies occupy. Being an architect, I very often come to space and the materiality of things. And that sense of age, an aging building, an aging person, is something that comes across in this. And that's what I found very, very touching as the book closes.
Do you want people to behave like they behaved in the past?
No.
I often do, so yeah. I like that you noted this. Why not?
Because it's moved on. Time has moved on. And the fear that time has moved on, but it will move on.
Yeah.
Cities will age, buildings will age, and they will go. In this or in Alice in Bhuleshwar, you can hold them back.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can hold them back sometimes.
It reminds me of, in my first book, I wrote about Freud and Rilke wandering in after Second World War. They wander around the countryside and a lot of buildings are burned. And Freud is all rejoicing, like he's seeing rebuilds. He's like, everything is burned down, but human life is so good that it always, it rises always from the ashes. You can never wipe it out. And Rilke is super sad because he's mourning. Like, a lot of things we knew, a lot of things in this garden, a lot of flowers died. And I thought about that a lot, like, should we rejoice because everything is reborn every time? But what if there was this one specific flower that you really liked, So, I don't know, I'm a little bit in between, like mourning and also seeing that, of course, new things will come. And also, I quote my favorite poet, Marie Kondo, who says, like, no matter how beautiful the past was, you cannot live in it. I know this, but still, I think sometimes you mourn the flowers you especially liked when they are burned down,
Do we write for that? Do we write to conserve, preserve, keep it in some way?
Yes. For me, I write because the specific time, place, the way people interacted will never come back. And I put in my books a lot of my mom, what I would have forgotten if I didn't put it in the books. This book opens with all the things I thought after my operation, because it was still so close. I was on morphine, I woke up, and the first thing I said to my then boyfriend was like, we cannot have a violentless revolution. We cannot. And he was like, I'm a pacifist, so we can. And I was like, no, because you're forcing me to get dirty hands because you want to keep them clean. And that was, I would never have remembered that if I haven't written it down. But the thing is, like I said, he left because of the operation. But I wrote down that his smiling face was the first thing I saw. And I think I would have forgot that because how it ended, I would have forgot how the middle was, or the pre-ending, whatever. So, yeah, I think it's good to preserve some of it because normally you change the narrative in your head after an ending. Yeah.
The fear is we can keep talking like this more and more for another few hours.
Can I still ask you one thing more? Or
Okay.
do you can say I don't want to talk about myself. That's also
you
good.
can ask me.
Or you can burden me with intimacy. You can choose. Are we
You
still
can
up
ask
for
me.
one question that I can ask?
Yeah.
I want to ask you, we had a before we went on, we had a discussion about labels, like how labels can be limiting. Can you, your personal philosophy about like, why wouldn't you come out with a label like, I'm a rainbow person, or I'm a vegetarian, or like, what do you think about that? Anti-label, why?
Yeah, not anti-label sounds very, very strong, but more in a sense that you are a person with many, many things, and sometimes that one label frames you too sharply or strongly, and the pressure that everything you do is then seen through that sharp framing, which may be an important framing but may still never be the only framing. One also wants to be a larger person than one frame in which you are sort of put. So I think very often the label turns into a frame, which is a sad thing. It
A box,
boxes you.
prison,
Yeah.
a prison box.
A person box, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the, maybe I could say that's the fear. That's somewhere the politics also. Can I float the person I am? And maybe it's the book I write, the exhibition I make, and see that. Why are you bothered how I sleep or how I eat?
Or who you sleep with,
Who
or
I
where
sleep
you sleep.
with? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So interesting. I can
But you
understand.
tell me.
Well, the thing is, I thought about labels, of course, quite a lot because of the non-binary thing. Because I could also have said nothing, just refused the implants, dated a lot of girls, and just lived my life. But for me, the label, giving language to it, made me open to conversation, and that made me so much less lonely. When you can communicate, this is who I am. People can reject you based on it. People can float to you, and also I already said this maybe to you, but you cannot control other people's thoughts. So a label, I accept a label if it gives me more freedom, and I reject labels that fence me in or limit me. And the label that I have now, non-binary or just Antiboy or Valentijn, because I see names as labels as well, it gave me the world. It made me travel. I wrote this lying in bed in 2021, blasting Game of Thrones in the background, for sound. And now I'm here in India talking to you, and like this story, writing it down gave me the world. So that's why I believe in certain labels if they make you bigger.
Yeah. I think we constantly negotiate also. Like I was just thinking again that we also have this problem in India. The moment you say your name, people start saying, oh, you come from this region, that's your surname. So that means it's like with my surname, most people think I'm a Gujarati or a vegetarian, which is everybody's shocked because I eat everything besides a human being kind of a thing. But it's like, so I'm like, why did you think I'm vegetarian, or why did you think I was Gujarati just because I have this particular surname? But this is the lightest that comes. Actually, people get boxed and slotted by their names and surnames constantly and very badly.
The surname also signals caste,
Surname
right?
signals 2-3 things. Yeah, it signals caste, it signals region. So you could be 15 different kinds of Maharashtrians, for example, or 5 different kinds of Gujaratis, depending on what your surname is indicating, or you must be like this because you're so and so. That, so I think there's a certain kind of an everydayness to this problem, which I think sometimes in good humor, sometimes in a pragmatic rejection or in ignoring it, one survives with it. And there are certain, I think, I don't know if one is being opportunistic, but you let the label flow when it allows you what you were saying, when it allows you to connect with people, and you withdraw the label when you say, it's going to disturb things and I don't have the energy to deal with that.
And I think I also sometimes, I joke about this with people. 2 things. One is not so funny. In Holland, there's a lot of racism. So when people enter the job market and they have like a Moroccan sounding name or a Muslim sounding name, they just do a different name on their job application. Otherwise, there's reaction. This is the not funny thing. The slightly funnier thing is that I work with a lot of male writers. I am very big on Agatha Christie. So I coach someone now who is not big on Agatha Christie, but is doing a murder mystery film. So I'm Agatha Christie coach.
Mhm.
And he looked up like who's gonna win the big golden prize for films in Holland, and he saw that the most people who win it are males called Wim. And he said like I should have been called Wim, then I can win it. And I was like, then you don't want it enough. If you're not changing your name to Win, no prize for you. So I sometimes think like a name can be a label too, and a surname can be a label too, and people can reject you based on the surname, and that's super complicated and sad. So I understand it's a complex thing. Like I can choose my own label, but maybe it will also work against me, and doors will close. I don't know. I notice more now the people who love me, who found me through this.
On that note, thank you very, very much, Valentine. Thank you for your book and thank you for the conversation.
Thank you too.